Hi everyone, I, 30M, need some perspective on a situation that's turned my whole life upside down. I never thought I'd be posting something like this, but here I am. I've been married to Thea, 28F, for 5 years, and we have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter Zaylee. We met during our final year of college through mutual friends at a party. She was studying business administration, and I was finishing my degree in finance. Some background is important here. I come from what you'd call a wealthy family. My parents built their business from scratch in the 1980s. They started with a small electronics store and grew it into a chain of high-end electronics and home automation stores across 3 states. They worked incredibly hard to give me and my sister the best of everything, but they also taught us the value of hard work. I started working in the stores when I was 16, learning everything from inventory management to customer service. Thea came from a middle-class background. Her dad was a high school teacher and her mom worked part-time at a local bank. When we started dating, she was working as a receptionist at a small company, but she was ambitious and wanted more. After we got married, she landed a job as an executive assistant at Peterson & Morris, one of the biggest law firms in our city. The early years of our marriage were great. Thea got along amazingly well with my family, especially my mom. They would go shopping together, have lunch dates, and mom even taught Thea all our old family recipes. My mom always wanted a daughter. She had my sister Lisa and me, and she treated Thea like the daughter she never had. My sister Lisa, 32F, was the only one who seemed hesitant about Thea from the beginning. Lisa has always been the more practical one between us. She has an MBA and helped modernize our family business. She would often tell me that something felt off about how interested Thea was in our family's money and business. She noticed how Thea would always steer conversations toward finances and future inheritances, but I dismissed it as Lisa being overprotective. After all, Lisa had gone through a bad breakup with someone who tried to take advantage of our family's wealth, so I thought she was just projecting her past experiences onto Thea. Everything changed last year when my parents died in a car accident. They were driving back from their vacation home when a drunk driver hit them on the highway. It was devastating for all of us, but especially for me since I had just had lunch with them the day before. Thea seemed incredibly supportive during this time. She handled a lot of the funeral arrangements, helped me deal with paperwork, and attended all the meetings with lawyers about the estate. My parents had everything properly planned out. They left the business equally to Lisa and me, set up trust funds for both our kids. Lisa has a 6-year-old son, and had detailed instructions about how everything should be managed. The trust funds were specifically set up to pay for our children's education and give them a start in life, but with strict conditions about how and when the money could be accessed. About 6 months ago, I started noticing changes in Thea's behavior. She began working late almost every night, saying her boss needed her help with important cases. She bought a whole new wardrobe, started getting expensive highlights and treatments at high-end salons, and was constantly on her phone. At first, I thought maybe she was just trying to look more professional for work, but something felt off. She became extremely protective of her phone, always keeping it face down and taking it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. She changed her password and started using her fingerprint to unlock it. When I mentioned this change casually, she got defensive and said she needed privacy for work-related matters. The real red flag started when she began pushing for changes to our financial arrangements. She suggested we should move the inheritance money from my separate account into our joint account to simplify our finances and make things easier to manage. When I hesitated, she started guilt-tripping me, saying I didn't trust her and that married couples shouldn't have separate finances. Then she started insisting that we should add her name to Zaylee's trust fund account. She claimed she was worried about Zaylee's future if anything happened to me, but this made no sense because the trust fund was already legally protected and set up specifically for Zaylee. My parents' lawyers had structured everything carefully to ensure the money would be used only for Zaylee's benefit. What really bothered me was how Thea started criticizing my sister's role in the business. She kept suggesting that Lisa had too much control and that as my wife, she should have more say in how things were run. She even tried to sit in on business meetings, claiming she wanted to learn more about the family business. Lisa pulled me aside after one of these meetings and told me that Thea had been asking strange questions about our banking arrangements and company accounts. Last month, everything fell apart. I was working late at our main store location, finishing up some inventory reports, when Thea's boss's wife Jennifer came to see me. She introduced herself and said she had something important to show me. Jennifer had discovered that her husband Felix, 42M, was having an affair with Thea for the past 8 months. She had evidence, text messages, hotel receipts, photos of them together at restaurants, and even pictures of them kissing in his car. But what made me sick to my stomach were the emails Jennifer found. Thea and Felix had been discussing plans to get access to my inheritance money. Thea told him she was working on convincing me to move everything to joint accounts so she could access it easier when the time comes. They even joked about how naive I was for trusting her so completely. I couldn't sleep that night, but I didn't confront Thea immediately. The next morning, I met with our family lawyer. He reviewed everything and explained that while Thea couldn't touch the trust fund because of how my parents set it up, any money I moved to joint accounts would be considered marital property and she'd be entitled to part of it in a divorce. He also helped me look through our bank statements, and I discovered Thea had spent over $50,000 from our joint account in recent months on hotels, shopping sprees, and gifts, presumably for Felix. I spent that day moving all my personal money out of our joint accounts, leaving only enough for regular household bills. I changed all my passwords, contacted a divorce lawyer, and started gathering important documents. When Thea couldn't access the main accounts that evening, she completely lost it. She called me at work screaming about how I had no right to cut her off and demanding I give her access again. That's when I confronted her with everything I knew. At first, she tried denying it all, claiming Jennifer was lying because she was jealous of Thea's close working relationship with Felix. But when I mentioned the emails and bank statements, she broke down. Instead of apologizing, she turned it around on me. She blamed me for being too focused on the business after my parents died. She said Felix appreciated her in ways I didn't, and that she deserved access to my family's money because she had supported me through my grief. Lisa came over during our argument after I texted her about what was happening. Thea completely lost it when she saw her. She started screaming at Lisa, calling her a controlling witch who had always been jealous of her relationship with our mom. She accused Lisa of turning me against her and said she needed the money more than us because she came from a less privileged background. Then she threatened to take Zaylee and make sure I never saw her again if I didn't give her access to the accounts. I told Thea to leave and stay with her parents until we could sort things out legally. She refused at first, saying this was her house too, but left when I mentioned I had copies of all her emails and messages with Felix. Zaylee stayed with me since our house is closer to her preschool, and I've been her primary caregiver anyway since Thea started working late. Thea's parents have been calling and texting nonstop, saying I'm being cruel and should give her another chance for Zaylee's sake. They say everyone makes mistakes and that throwing away our marriage over one indiscretion is selfish. Lisa thinks I did exactly the right thing protecting the money and supports my decision completely. Some of Thea's friends are saying I overreacted and should have talked things through before taking such drastic action. They say I'm being controlling with money and that Thea probably only looked elsewhere because of that. I know she's still my daughter's mother, but I can't trust her anymore after discovering she was basically planning to steal my family's money while cheating on me. Ida for protecting my assets and cutting her off like this? Should I have handled it differently? Update 1. I want to update everyone about what's happened since my last post. Things have spiraled in ways I never could have imagined. The support from my original post really helped me stay strong through what came next, because everything got much worse. The day after I posted, Thea started her revenge campaign. She went on social media and posted a long message claiming I had been emotionally and financially abusive throughout our marriage. She said I controlled all the money, made her beg for basic necessities, and that's why she had to turn to Felix for support. Most of our mutual friends knew this was completely false. They had seen me buy her expensive gifts, watched her shop freely with our credit cards, and knew she had full access to our accounts until I discovered the affair. But what really floored me was discovering that Thea had completely drained Zaylee's college savings account. This was separate from the trust fund my parents set up. It was an account we started when Zaylee was born where we put money every month for her future. Thea took out nearly $25,000, leaving it completely empty. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She claimed she needed it for lawyer fees since I had cut her off unfairly and left her with no choice. She showed zero remorse about taking money we had saved for our daughter's education. Then came an even bigger bombshell. Thea's best friend Ashley, 29F, came to see me. She was clearly upset and said she couldn't keep quiet anymore. According to Ashley, Thea's affair with Felix wasn't her first one. There had been 2 other men during our marriage, a client at her previous job and a personal trainer from her gym. Ashley had known about both and kept quiet because Thea convinced her it was just harmless flirting and that she needed the attention. Ashley showed me old messages where Thea bragged about getting expensive gifts from these men. She would tell them she was in an unhappy marriage and needed help escaping, the same story she apparently told Felix. One guy had given her a $5,000 bracelet that she told me was a bonus from work. Another paid for a spa weekend that she claimed was a work retreat. The worst revelation came when reviewing the evidence from my divorce lawyer. Thea had been methodically planning this for months. She had secretly recorded conversations between us on her phone, deliberately trying to provoke arguments that she could use in court. She would start fights about money or my work hours, then record my responses. Her plan was to paint me as a controlling workaholic who drove her to cheat. Her messages with Felix revealed their whole scheme. Once she got access to my inheritance, she planned to file for divorce and take half of everything. They had even looked at houses together, planning their future with my family's money. Felix's wife found all these messages on their shared iPad that Thea didn't know about. Thea's parents finally saw her true colors when I showed them the recordings and her messages about planning to take the money. They came to my house to apologize for pressuring me to take her back. Her dad broke down and admitted that Thea had always been manipulative, even as a child. She would lie, scheme, and play people against each other to get what she wanted. They enabled her behavior because she was their only child, and now they were seeing the consequences. I filed for divorce last week with a stack of evidence. My lawyer says we have a strong case for full custody given Thea's behavior, the evidence of her plans, and her misuse of Zaylee's college fund. She's still working with Felix, who is also getting divorced, and they're apparently planning to move in together. His wife told me they've already been looking at apartments. The hardest part of all this is watching how it affects Zaylee. She misses her mom but gets upset during Thea's visits because Thea spends the whole time arguing with me about money instead of paying attention to her. The last time she came over, she spent 20 minutes of her 1-hour visit arguing about wanting her name added to Zaylee's trust fund account. Zaylee ended up crying and asking to go to her room. I've started recording all our interactions because Thea keeps making false accusations. She told her lawyer I yell at her in front of Zaylee, not true, and that I turn Zaylee against her, also not true. The recordings protect me, but it's sad that I need them. My sister Lisa has been my rock through all this. She handles things at the business when I need to deal with lawyers or take care of Zaylee. She was right about Thea from the start, and I wish I had listened to her instincts years ago. Thea's latest demand through her lawyer is that she should get half of my share in the family business as compensation for supporting me through my parents' death. She claims she earned it by helping with funeral arrangements and paperwork. My lawyer says she has no chance since it's inherited property, but it shows how delusional she's become about what she thinks she deserves. I'm beyond grateful that I trusted my gut and protected our assets when I did. Who knows how much more damage she could have done if I hadn't caught on to her plans when I did. Update 2: the situation has exploded in ways I never expected. Thea's life has completely fallen apart, and somehow she's still trying to drag me down with her. Last week, Thea's boss Felix suddenly fired her from the law firm. At first, I thought it was because their affair had become too obvious, but the truth was much worse. The firm discovered she had been stealing money for months. She had been falsifying expense reports, charging personal expenses to client accounts, and even billing clients for hours she never worked. The firm's partners uncovered this during their annual audit. They found over $30,000 in fraudulent charges, everything from hotel stays with Felix to shopping sprees at luxury stores, all billed to different client accounts. When they confronted her, she tried to blame it on clerical errors, but they had solid proof. Felix, who apparently knew about some of the fraud, tried to protect her initially. But when his wife threatened to expose his own misconduct at the firm, apparently he had been overbilling clients for years, he quickly threw Thea under the bus to save himself. The firm reported Thea's theft to the police but kept Felix's issues internal to avoid embarrassment. Thea showed up at my house at midnight, completely hysterical. She admitted everything, how she had been stealing from the firm for over a year to maintain her lifestyle with Felix. She said it started small, just charging a few personal meals to client accounts, but grew as she got bolder. The expensive salons, shopping sprees, weekend getaways with Felix, it was all paid for with stolen money. Then came an even bigger shock. The police investigation into her bank records revealed she had opened several credit cards in my name without my knowledge. She had somehow gotten hold of my social security number and other personal information, probably from our tax documents, and applied for cards online. She racked up over $45,000 in debt buying gifts for Felix and staying at luxury hotels. She even booked a vacation for them using my information, a 2-week trip to Europe they were planning to take after she left me. The trip was scheduled for next month, and she had already put down $15,000 in deposits using my fraudulent cards. My sister Lisa did some investigating and made a disturbing discovery. This wasn't Thea's first time doing this. She found Thea's previous boyfriend from before we met. Apparently, Thea had maxed out his credit cards and disappeared, leaving him with over $20,000 in debt. He never pressed charges because she threatened to tell his religious family about personal information she had on him. This explained why she was so eager to date me when we met. She was looking for her next target. Felix completely abandoned Thea once the fraud came to light. His divorce with Jennifer was finalized, and he lost most of his assets to her. The law firm forced him to resign quietly, and he's already moved to another state. Last I heard, he's dating a real estate agent and wants nothing to do with Thea. He even sent me an email apologizing for everything, though I think he's just trying to protect himself legally. Thea is now facing criminal charges for fraud and identity theft. The police found evidence on her laptop showing she had been planning to open even more credit cards in my name. She had a whole spreadsheet tracking different cards, payment dues, and which charges she could hide as business expenses. I've spent hours on the phone with credit card companies disputing the fraudulent charges. My lawyer says this strengthens our divorce case significantly, but also means I might never recover the money she stole since she has no assets of her own. The saddest part is explaining all this to Zaylee. She keeps asking why mommy doesn't visit anymore and why I look worried all the time. How do you explain to a 3-year-old that her mother cared more about money and her boyfriend than her own family? Thea's parents have finally stopped defending her. They're now just focused on trying to keep her out of jail and get her psychiatric help. Her dad told me they had ignored signs of her problematic behavior since she was young, always making excuses for her actions. Now they're facing the reality that their daughter might go to prison. The divorce proceedings are moving forward, but it's complicated by the criminal charges. My lawyer says we need to wait and see how the criminal case plays out before finalizing anything. Meanwhile, I'm working on rebuilding my credit and protecting Zaylee from as much of this mess as I can. Final update. I wanted to give a final update to close this chapter of my life. The past few months have been exhausting, but things are finally settling into a new normal. The divorce is officially final. In the end, it went smoother than expected because Thea couldn't fight much given her legal troubles. She took a plea deal for the fraud charges, 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, and she has to pay back everything she stole. The judge ordered her to pay restitution of around $75,000 total, combining the firm's money and the credit card fraud. This means 60% of her income will go toward paying back what she stole for at least the next 5 to 7 years. The divorce court granted me full custody of Zaylee, with Thea getting supervised visits twice a month. In 3 months, she's only shown up 3 times. Each visit follows the same pattern. She spends most of the time complaining about her problems, barely interacts with Zaylee, and then leaves early claiming she has errands to run. The court ordered her to pay $400 in monthly child support, but I've only received 1 partial payment so far. My lawyer says not to expect much given her financial situation. Felix's life imploded too. His divorce from Jennifer was brutal. She got their house, most of their savings, and even his prized car collection. He had to step down from the law firm to avoid them exposing his overbilling scheme. Last I heard from Jennifer, he moved to Arizona and is trying to start over at a smaller firm. He hasn't contacted Thea since everything fell apart, and blocked her number when she kept calling him. Thea's life is a mess. She lost her apartment because she couldn't afford rent after getting fired. Her parents refused to let her move back home, saying she needed to face consequences for once. She's now working as a receptionist at a small dental office and sharing an apartment with 2 roommates. She tells everyone who'll listen that I ruined her life, but most people know the truth. The credit card companies eventually cleared all the fraudulent charges from my credit report, though my credit score took a hit. I've set up extra security measures and credit monitoring to prevent anything like this from happening again. The law firm decided not to pursue additional charges since she's already on probation and paying restitution. Zaylee is doing much better now that there's stability in her routine. She still asks about her mom sometimes, but not as often as before. She's made new friends at preschool and my sister's son comes over to play regularly. Thea's parents visit Zaylee once a month and try to be good grandparents despite everything. They've apologized multiple times for not seeing Thea's true nature sooner. Lisa was right about Thea all along. She noticed the red flags I ignored because I was too in love to see them. She's been incredible through all this, helping with Zaylee and keeping our business running while I dealt with legal issues. Our parents would be proud of how she's handled everything. I'm focusing on Zaylee and our family business for now. This whole experience taught me a lot about trusting my instincts and protecting what matters. My parents worked hard to leave us secure, and I'm grateful I caught Thea's plans before she could steal their legacy. The trust fund and inheritance are safely locked away for Zaylee's future. Sometimes I wonder if Thea ever really loved us or if we were just Felix in her long con. Either way, Zaylee and I are better off now. It's been a hard lesson, but at least we learned it before Thea could do more damage.